Nice work, by the way, Troy.
Thanks.
Yeah, really great.
Except safe is going to be in there. People are going to think I'm all warm and fuzzy now. Said nobody ever.
We're setting them up.
All right, so we're going to be talking about language and splitting language between team members and general audience. So why is language important?
I don't understand the context of what we're talking about.
So this is about having different language at different levels of the schedule. So what Mia had told me was that a subtask you could use more jargon that's specifically targeted at team members so that they can. Okay. So why is language important?
Language is important because there is an intent to convey some specific information to some specific audience, right? We can go, Merriam-Webster says, but in a project schedule, you want the language that is going to be action-oriented, and you want the language that is going to communicate to the person who's executing the tasks most cleanly. There are some project schedules that you're going to build out that are very detail-oriented, that have information in there that the project manager, strictly speaking, doesn't necessarily have to know. You're going to build out an SQL, whatever, environment. The project manager doesn't need to know specifically what that is, but the project manager needs to know that Eddie is doing that, and Eddie's going to start it and end it at a certain time. Now, at a broader level, you're certainly going to want to know what is the initiation phase, what is the execution phase, how are things going, and language at that level is very commonly understood all the way from executives all the way down. So you will end up addressing your schedule to the different stakeholders at the level at which they generally are.
What happens when you use language properly?
When you use language properly within the schedule, what you're going to achieve is you're going to achieve consistent understanding. If things are not too vague, they're specific to the audience, you're going to be far more effective in executing the project.
What happens when you use language improperly?
When you use language improperly in the project schedule, it's going to lead to a lot of confusion. It's going to lead to a lot of, what was that? Oh, I thought what Bob meant was he's going to install, not restore, and so that's, no, now I'm going to have to extend out 3 weeks on this project. So being very specific at the specific level tasks so that everyone who has a dependency within that project can have a common understanding of it is absolutely critical.
Who are some of the users that you have to be mindful of when including or excluding language? Who are you targeting, the various audiences?
This is just a weird section we're talking about. When you're creating a project schedule, it's critical to be mindful of the audience that you have for the project schedule. Most of the time it's not going to be executive, but you need to be able to roll up to executive reporting. You also need to be able to roll it up to a management level as well as executioner. Executioners are going to use very specific language that is very meaningful to them, but is often certainly not meaningful to the two people who are levels up. So you need to be mindful that you could always roll up the information to an appropriate level when you're creating your project schedule. So something that is very detailed, you're probably going to put under Ed's technical stuff, and then there's going to be 17 very detailed tasks that nobody but Ed really understands, but he understands, and he could explain the dependencies to others. Missing that is really going to end up miscommunicating to your different audiences.
Okay. Going off of what you said about rolling up, how do you segregate language in the project schedule?
I hate this category. I don't. Separating language in the project schedule, you need to make sure that you're considering who the audience is at any given point in time. For example, sometimes you're going to have someone who is a very technical oriented or a group that is very technically oriented, and you're going to put language in there that speaks very specifically to them, but may not have a lot of meaning for others. As long as they exist in isolation, then you create a roll-up to that, and it's going to be called Ed's House of Building Out a Server. And that's something that everyone could understand, and that is going to key off other stakeholders or other people who have tasks in there to say, oh, you're talking about building a server? Well, here are the 2 or 3 different things that I need. So you got to be very mindful of the different audience who's executing it and make sure that everyone could understand at the level that's appropriate.